spoke to many entertainers, singers and performers since the lockdown and all of that. I actually spoke to my next guest's brother on the programme back a couple of months ago in lockdown. And my next guest is a lady who has sold in excess of 1 million records. Her career goes back to 1964. Has performed and recorded in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and this last 2 decades as well. I'm delighted to say a big hello to the one and only Margo. Margo, how are you?
I'm very good, Jerry, and it's great to talk to you, so thank you for having me on your programme.
It's a real pleasure, a real pleasure. And you started off, 1964 was your first recording.
1964 I started with a show band from home in Donegal, the Keynotes, and I was still going to school at that time. I was just almost 13, and they would at Lent that time there was no dances in Ireland, so the bands were always off, you know. So the Keynotes, they used to take part in little drama things in the parochial halls, and one was taking place in my local hall, St Mary's in Kincastle, and of course the priest was involved and I sang in the choir, so I was singing at these little concerts that they had during Lent, and that's where I got to know the Keynotes, and they were all local fellas from around where I came from, so I knew their families and everything. And then their lead singer, he was, as my mother said, he was leaving to get a proper job. He was joining the Guards. And I had come back. I was over at picking potatoes in Scotland, in Ayrshire, with my brother John. And a lot of people from West Mayo and North Kerry and Donegal especially went in the summer months to, they called it the Tatty Hokan. We picked potatoes all along the Ayrshire coast and down onto the borders of England in Kelso. So I came back, I always say I came back from Scotland on the Saturday, and on the Sunday the Keynotes came to the house asking my mother, my father was working in Scotland at the time, and asking her if she would let me sing with them at weekends and school holidays and that. So then she talked it over with Dad, and I joined them in October, and the rest is just, I suppose, as to say, it's history. But I was earning 10 shillings a night. Every night I went out with them, and I never ever looked at it as a career. It wasn't. It was something I was doing that was fun, and I enjoyed it immensely. And I was getting to dances when all my school friends were at home and weren't allowed to go to dances. So I had a lot to tell all the school friends, you know, on a Monday morning or whatever. I'd have been out maybe on the Friday and the Saturday. So it was a thing that I did with a group of guys from home, and then we recorded our very first single, The Bonny Irish Boy, which was a song that was given to me by my dad. My dad was a lovely singer, and he knew an awful lot of the old ballads and the old folky ballads, and he taught me that song, and that was our first record, and it was released actually the morning that my father died. He never heard it, and I suppose that day he was dead 52 years yesterday as I speak to you. Oh. And he was 48 years of age. And that day changed my life forever. I was the second eldest of a family of five kids, and when he was gone, there was no money coming in, and it was just John, my eldest brother, and myself that were able to take home some money. So I sort of threw myself full belt into the band then at the time, and after The Bonny Irish Boy, I followed it up with a song called The Road by the River, and If I Could See the World Through the Eyes of a Child. And I got offered then from a Dublin promoter a new band on the road and £100 a week with a car and a driver. And I promised my father on the morning that he died, never ever thinking that this man was going to pass away, that I would look after Mum and my siblings. And when I talked it over with Mum, this was the door that opened, that I was able to do that. And I carried the promise. Maybe, Jerry, at times I carried it too seriously and too far till it weighed down on me with a great heavy weight. And, it led me into a wrong footing for a couple of years. But I was able to rear my siblings and look after Mum. And I was then in the music business full time, but it wasn't what I dreamed of. I always wanted to be a nurse and get married and settle down and have a few kids. But, that wasn't the way life was supposed to go. So that's the gist of the story, as the man says, and the rest has been written many times.
Indeed. It was, at that time, I mean, £100 a week was plus a car and a driver. I mean, that was absolutely huge money back then.
It was colossal money. It really was big money, and it was the answer to our problems, to my mum and my family's problems. And I wasn't really aware of the impact that Margo had, with the people in the music business. So when I talk about, I always separate Margaret O'Donnell from Margo. I'm very grateful to Margo for all the things that she gave me and gave my mother and my family and that. But it was a life that was totally alien to me. I was born in Donegal, in the heart and soul of the country, where everything was safe and everything was simple and everything was easy, and I was thrust into this big time in Dublin. I remember saying to the promoter, could I take the keynotes with me? And he said, no, that's not in the deal. And I remember on a very, very dark, cold November evening, leaving Donegal with a little suitcase and heading for Dublin, where I started rehearsals with my new band, the Country Folk. And I was extremely lonely. I wasn't a city girl at all, and I didn't like city life. I didn't like anything about it. But in order to fulfill what I wanted to do, I had to put up with moving to Dublin. And I moved there, and I was there while I rehearsed with the band and we got on the road. And then I moved to Galway because when I was with the keynotes, we used to base ourselves. Sometimes they would plan, dances, maybe one in Galway, one in Limerick, and maybe sometimes in North Kerry or whatever. They would base ourselves in Galway. So I got to know people in Galway, and I actually boarded with a man and his wife. He was from Donegal, and I knew his sisters. So I stayed with them, and they didn't have a family, and they treated me like their child, So I was safe then again. And but the big bad world comes in now and again, and I was lonely. I was away from home, and I was never ever aware of the impact that Margo had. It totally went over my head. And sometimes when I look back now on the career that I've had, I'm kind of glad that it did. I never changed. I still, the same friends that I had back then, I still have those friends today. I have never, Jerry, never ever been at a showbiz party in all of my life. And I lead a very, very simple life. I love the music that I sing, and I have great friends all around me now. So life is good, and it's been a wonderful journey.
Indeed, absolutely excellent. But I think the fact that you haven't gone to these showbiz parties or got into any of this type of, which in many ways is a false situation entirely anyhow,
yeah, absolutely.
Kept feet on the ground, because, it's there's very little to be gained for the individual, I think, by these type of sort of showbiz parties. I mean, it happens in the media as well. I must say, I've always kept away from them also.
Yeah.
It's something.
These kind of things are not. They're not really, and I always kept my feet very firmly on the ground. I met some wonderful people. The fans that I have, Jerry, they're the salt of the earth. They really and truly are, and I always stayed around home. I did tour America, and I toured Australia and that sort of thing, in Scotland and England, but mostly here in Ireland. And to the places that I did in England were always near enough the Irish, the Irish ballrooms, and we would do the big concerts, and maybe the likes of the Royal Albert Hall or whatever, with a host of artists on. So I was always very, very close. I always kept close to the roots that I came from. And then I suppose in the 90s, I went to Nashville for the first time, and I made great friends there on the Grand Ole Opry. And if somebody had said to me, when I was starting out and I was buying my first country records, I was buying records of the people that I became friends with, in Nashville. I never thought that would have happened to me, and I never ever thought that I would have, met the likes of Kitty Wells and Loretta Lynn and Jean Shepherd and Dolly, and I recorded an album with Dolly back in '96, and I spent 6 weeks in Nashville with the Parton family and the Owens family from East Tennessee, and we recorded a beautiful album, and I made great friends with all these people, and I have wonderful, wonderful memories. But I wouldn't have any of this if it weren't for the fans. I would have nothing, and that brings us right to the situation that we're in today with this terrible, terrible virus, and it has been able to do something that nothing was able to do on me before, and that is, it has separated the likes of me and other artists from the people. We're not able to get in touch with them, and it's sad, and we have no arrow pointing to where we're going to go from here. We pray every day that, we will get back and that this will pass. And I hope it's just a pause button at the minute. But there is no light at the end of this. All we have is the likes of you, Jerry, and thank you for, taking on and doing the show and keeping our music alive. We all need each other. At the end of the day, I wouldn't be on radio if you hadn't made contact, if you didn't start to do your program. So we all need each other. And in some way, you are connecting the likes of me and Daniel and everybody else that you've interviewed. You're connecting us again with the people out there. And that's the one thing that we have to be grateful for now, that you will connect us with them for just that short while that we're talking to you. And I thank you for that.
Margo, it's a real pleasure. It's a pleasure indeed to be able to catch up with you. I think with this whole lockdown and with this dreadful situation we find ourselves in, one of the biggest things has been technology and communication, which has advanced things whereby we're unable to literally meet up together, but at least we can keep in contact through technology, which has greatly advanced over the years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I even did a sort of television program there on TG Cahir, our Irish station, with Daniel. And I never, God almighty, I never ever thought that I would be sitting in a room, with earphones and looking into a laptop computer, and we'd be able to do a program. And I watched Daniel last night. He's in Tenerife, and he did a Facebook thing, a concert, and it's amazing what we can do. Daniel and I have a cousin. We have a lot of cousins in Scotland. My father's people were all they all went from Donegal to Scotland and started their lives there and their families. And Daniel and I, my family, have a cousin there that was very ill. And I was able to call Daniel yesterday evening and say, Daniel, Kathleen is not well. Just mention her, on your Facebook concert. And he did last night, and he sang a little song for her. And I was so happy because at 7:30 this morning, she passed away. So without technology being what it is, that little moment wouldn't have happened last night. So we have to be grateful. I'm not great with technology, but we have to be grateful that we can do these things, and the technology is there to help us along, because sometimes it's out of our power.
Indeed. So that's a lovely story, and my sympathies on that the sad passing.
Yeah. She wasn't going to get better, but I felt great for Daniel, because Daniel and I were very, very close to her, and it was amazing last night. I watched him and I talked to him after it, and I must say we both cried a little bit about the whole situation. And when I called him this morning early in Tenerife and told him, that she was aware that he spoke of her, and he sang a song that she used to always sing when we would all get together at family gatherings, Stornoway, and he sang the song. So, thank God for technology, and thank God we had that moment last night to say goodbye to her, and she passed away in her sleep, and it was a lovely ending,
Indeed.
God rest her soul.
Indeed. Margo, you've been involved for quite a while, since 1977 indeed, with the search for a distant relative, a little girl who went missing, Mary Boyle. In fact, you even recorded a song, The Missing Mary Boyle.
Yeah, absolutely. When several times the searches for Mary sort of uprooted themselves again, and we've had many searchers for Mary's body. And back at one of the times, PJ Murray rang me, and he said, that he was listening to an interview that I did, and I was talking about Mary, and he wrote that song that I recorded about Mary Boyle. And as we speak, there was a documentary done a number of years ago about Mary going missing and all that, and as we speak, actually, two guys from the north of Ireland have done another documentary on the disappearance of Mary Boyle. And as I speak to you now, it's been edited and it's almost ready to go. And they're hoping that they will get it out on Netflix to a wider audience than parochially here in Ireland, just to make people aware of the situation. It's a terrible situation, and I knew Mary. I'm in constant touch with her twin Anne, and Anne will never give up the search for her twin sister, and it's a very sad situation. It has broke the family in pieces. It has separated them all, the whole lot of them, and it's such a sad situation. But it's all within a little group. It's not, Jerry, that people don't know what happened to Mary. I don't know, but it's not that there are people still alive that know exactly what happened to Mary Boyle. There are actually people alive as I speak to you that know where Mary's body is. And those people, may I add, are very close relatives of Mary. So it's a bad situation, a situation where I wish I wasn't involved in it, but I was actually a distant relation of Mary's dad. My mother and Mary's grandmother were cousins, first cousins. They came from the island of Owie, a little island off the northwest coast of Donegal, and Charlie, her father, came from there as well. He was born there. And that was actually when they returned from Birmingham. They lived in, Mary and Anne were born in Birmingham. And they have one brother, Patrick, and he was born there as well. So they moved back, and they moved back to Owie Island. And it wasn't until the twins became of age to start national school that they decided that they would have to move out of the island, because there wasn't at that time. A lot of people had moved out, and the school was no longer, occupied. So they were going to have to, come out to the mainland where I came from, Kincastle. So they did. And it just so happened that a brother of Mary's mother, her mother came from a place called Cashellard, which is 8 miles from Ballyshannon in County Donegal. And her brother was killed in a tractor accident on St. Patrick's Day. And they went up to Cashellard for an anniversary mass. And Mary and Anne and Patrick and Charlie and Anne, the mother and father. And they stayed overnight with Anne's parents. And in that house, there was Mary's grandparents, the mother's father and mother. There was Jerry Gallagher and his wife Eva and their 2 boys. And they returned from Birmingham to take up the remote farming land of the grandparents. So they were all in that house together. It is a very, very remote part it's so remote, it's eerie. And there's no road at all near the Gallagher house. No road. There's just a path that leads down, a laneway that leads on to a little minor road that leads you eventually to Beleek and County Fermanagh. So nobody came and picked Mary up and threw her in a car. They didn't. Yeah. Mary was there at the house. Mary was around the house, and somebody led her away. And that's what happened, Mary Boyle. Now, that's it. I don't have the answer, but I do know who does have the answer. But I think they need to be lent on a little bit more. So maybe with this documentary, that these 2 fine young men, they contacted me actually after the last documentary that was done by a Dublin woman, and it kind of got lost. It really got lost because it went away from the situation that we were talking about. This was about a little girl. And then, Jerry, sometimes people's ego comes into it. And it kind of wandered away from the actual story, and it lost its way a little bit. But it did help. It did help a little bit and bringing Mary's memory back to people. And people are very aware. She's like the Irish Madeleine McCann. She really is, people love the story of Mary. People are heartbroken that her body was never found, but she lays up there in Cashellard. That's where her body is. I have no doubt whatsoever about that. And people do know where she is, and those people are still alive. And whether they will take that to their grave with them, I don't know. And that's between them and God. But I know that I will meet Mary Boyle again someday. And I know that, thank God, I've done all that I can. And I have taken part in this new documentary, as has her twin sister, and her mother and several other members of the family, and it's a wonderful documentary, and it's done from a young person's point of view this time. So maybe that will help, Jerry. I don't know, but these boys seem to think that they have a couple of ace cards, and I hope that it works.
Hopefully so, because it really is. It's a heartbreaking story. I mean, and to have gone on for so long. I mean, for so many years. This was 1977 we're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's
it's absolutely ridiculous. And the two guards that were there, the very first two guards that were there. I mean, I've known them since Mary went missing, and I'm still friends with them today. And at that time, Jerry, they had children exactly the same age as Mary, so they took it very much to their heart. They wore their heart on their sleeves to me since 1977. There was political interference in the case, and they weren't actually allowed to ask people some questions that they wanted to. And they're retired now, they're old men, and still I get calls if they hear of something coming up about Mary to see is there a chance that she might be found before they pass away. And they're still as hurt about it, and they took it really to their hearts. And they also know the people that know, but they couldn't crack it either.
Right, that's that really is the horrific thing, and it's actually horrific to hear that there was any political interference in something as absolutely horrific as this. Yeah,
it was probably I can think back to the day or those years ago. A politician made a phone call on behalf of a family member, and many politicians made a phone call as a favour for people, and maybe at the time not realising the terrible deepening of the whole situation he was causing because of that phone call. But that phone call stopped the guards that were investigating. At that very, very moment that phone call was made, everything was stopped. And, as one of the guards said to me when we were talking last, he said, if that phone call hadn't been made into the station, we wouldn't be standing here talking about what happened to Mary Boyle that day.
Yeah, which is truly shocking, and the other aspect of it, of course, is the fact that it's possibly a product of the time that it was. But no politician should ever have been able to ring into any police station and stop any investigation or waylay it in any way.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and we looked at loads of. I hoped in a way that maybe the English police would get involved, because Mary was born in Birmingham, Mary and Anne, and they lived in Birmingham, and your program goes out. I'm sure people in Birmingham will hear it, and there could be a clue, in somebody's mind. They might, if they hear me talking, they might think of something did happen in Birmingham that would actually open up the case a little bit more. Something did happen with a member of the Gallagher family in Birmingham.
Okay.
But that's all I can say at the minute. But we've Donald McIntyre, Donald McIntyre.
Yes.
He actually was in on this case as well, and he tried his best, and he looked into different avenues in England as well, in Birmingham, but he came against a brick wall as well, because family won't talk, and if the family were honest about the whole situation, this case would have been sorted and solved a long, long time ago.
Which is, incredibly sad.
Very sad. But, Jerry, there was a thing back then, and I wasn't aware of it, but it has been said to me over and over and over again. Nothing was as important as the family name. To keep up the family name at all costs. And I remember somebody saying that to me. The first time that I heard it probably was about 9 or 10 years ago. And this was concerning Mary. And they spoke about the family name. And I just said, what good is the family name? It's in tatters anyway, and nothing has been upheld. But this is all a cover-up under the family, and that's all I can say. And I'm naming nobody, but the family know the answer to this, and they will not come forward.
Yeah, seems astounding that in a situation like this, which is a murder, that people will not actually do the right thing. As you were saying, and come out and actually say what the truth is and what did happen, because you're saying that people know. I mean, those. They do, and people have come to me from the locality, and they've said to me, "We know, but we're afraid to talk." And what can you say? You just have to walk away. I have got so many anonymous letters from people telling me things, but they're no good to me, Jerry. They're not signed. Right.
Terrible letters, really terrible letters. But they're not signed, so they're no good to me. They're no good to anybody. They're not worth the paper that they're written on without a name. So I don't have anywhere that I can go. And I've handed the whole thing over to a cousin of Mary's, actually, Joe Craig, and he lives in Letterkenny. He was born in Scotland, and he's very passionate about it, and he's working with the twin, and I have given a part of my information to the documentary as well. But he's, maybe now that if this documentary does come out, and I will let you know, and you can highlight it when I hear that it is coming, I will get in touch with you and I'll tell you, and then you can maybe announce it and people can watch out for it.
Certainly will. Is it your belief that the people who know what happened to Mary Boyle, do you believe that they went on and committed other similar type crimes?
They could have. Yeah, they could have done that. That's something I don't know. But I mean, as far as the men from the law are concerned, they actually say that this could have happened again and again.
Wow, that is a sobering thought, and it's hard to believe, that 43 years later, that we're still, that this is still going on, and that we just cannot, or nobody can just dig up the and get the absolute truth, and that people will not speak who should be speaking. It's truly incredible. Yeah. Got to be one of the saddest, the saddest stories of a missing person, never mind a missing child, coming out of Ireland. And there have been some, terrible...
horrific stories and terrible cases. But this is really one of the saddest cases that I've ever heard of. It really and truly is. This was a little girl. I was so fortunate to know her. And she was a lovely, innocent little girl with golden curls. I really mean it. And her memory will always stay with me, and it's as if, nobody gives a damn at times, and it's heartbreaking. But please God, in my time, they will solve this mystery. But I've done as much as I can do, you know. So I handed it over to, he's actually a nephew of Mary's father.
Okay, well done. Well done on all of that. Margo, listen, it's been lovely to chat with you. Congratulations.
And you too. And we went away from the music, but I think, people know about the music, and I just want, on my behalf, and even on Daniel's behalf, and all the artists, to thank you for all the work that you're doing and keeping our music alive. And thanks to all the people out there that have followed me down through the years. They've been wonderful. I never would have had all the success that I have had and that I've enjoyed without the fans. They are the salt of the earth, and I love them to pieces.
That is excellent, and indeed, well done on your achievements in music. The last hit I believe you had actually was the one with Big Tom. A lot of this lasted through the years.
Yeah, it was huge. It really was, and I miss Tom every day. Tom and Rose, they were my best friends here in County Monaghan, and every Sunday I visit his grave, and we have a beautiful statue. I fought for the statue. I thought he deserved it, and I was so sad that Rose and him were gone before the statue was erected, but that's life. I know that they were looking down with joy. But we had, when we recorded the song, we actually did it on a personal basis. We wanted to do this, and we never actually got it done. And then when we were both sort of semi-retired, we decided to do it, and I was so thrilled, just on a personal level, that I did it with Tom, and the same went for him. But the huge success of the song, it was the biggest song that year, and it will be my biggest achievement ever. And in my music career, I've had many, and I've recorded with many, many people. But the icing on my cake was a love that's lasted through the years with Big Tom McBride.
Excellent, absolutely excellent. Margo, listen, thanks a million, and listen,
Thank
stay
you,
safe.
Jerry.
Thanks very, very much. Listen,
God bless you.
Stay safe and stay well.
You too. God bless.